What are the current trends in the job market?
There is a high demand of people in the health sector. What companies are looking for, they're looking for people who are for sure, they know that they've got the right skills for the role.
How much time do you really spend on a candidate resume?
Your CVs should reflect what we want to hear.
I would say that, and the best thing is to get out of your comfort zone.
When a company says, we're like a family, that means literally they expect you to give everything to your family.
Hello and welcome to Never Let Show with Anuvindh, aka nlsa podcast. This is your ultimate destination for professional growth strategies. Are you feeling lost in your job hunt? Wishing you knew the secrets to land that six-figure dream salary? Whether you are a recent graduate or a seasoned executive, this episode might be your one-stop shop. Today, we are diving deep into the world of career advancement, covering everything from acing interviews to navigate the complexities of the job market. Joining us today, the industry expert and a seasoned professional, Sidra Siddiqui, who have worked with companies like Rocket Lab, Solar Zero, and government entities as well as education industry. She has successfully recruited more than thousands candidates. She will be sharing her invaluable insight and tips for success. If you are interested in a specific topic, feel free to check our timestamps. Today, we are diving deep. So buckle up and get ready to take your career into next level. Welcome, Sidra. Welcome to nlsa podcast.
Hi, my name is Sidra Siddiqui. I am an academic recruiter at NZSEG. I started recruiting 12 years ago, as an external recruiter at Adecco, where I was mostly doing recruitment for construction and supply chain management companies. And since then, I have been recruiting for various different industries, which included a government institute. I worked at Auckland Council, and I've worked at several large tech companies, one of them being Rocket Lab. I've probably recruited more of the higher end, so people who are on the higher trajectory in their careers.
But maybe we can start with, what's the secret to impress a recruiter?
The best thing you can do is to keep your CV nice and short and precise, and make sure the role that you applied for, you actually have those skills on your CV. So it should reflect, whatever role you're applying for, those skills, those requirements, those expertise are actually reflected on your CV. And they actually are reflecting on the first page itself. Because I'll tell you what, we get like hundreds of CVs. To make sure that, we pick the right one, we don't go through, if you've got 5 pages in your CV and you've got the most relevant expertise that is required for the role in the third page, you've already missed out. So the best tip that I can give anybody is to make sure that the relevance of the job is reflected in the first part of your CV.
Does this mean when you're applying for an IT job, you should not be mentioning your Pizza Hut experience?
No,
any hospital. I'm not mentioning a specific company. Like if you worked in entirely a different industry and you want to apply for another industry, you should not be mentioning, or it's okay to show as, even let's say you worked as a manager for that company and you're applying for a project management role. Does it still relevant?
What we're trying to see here is how you, conceptualize in a workspace. So it's always very important to have those things on your CV when you are hitting those higher roles. So I don't think, your anything that you did maybe as a student or anything that you did if you were new, a migrant to New Zealand, those roles do help you get your first break, but once you've got some experience and you're hitting those higher level roles, I think you need to reflect on what you did on your current roles.
Let's look into the job market now. What are the current trends in the job market that requires someone who is highly skilled and that's ready to pay a six-figure salary?
There is a high demand of people in the health sector.
Health sector
is it used to be tech for a long time, but I feel like from the last quarter last year to now, health sector has picked up massively.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not talking about like surgeons and things like that. We're talking about practitioners, not like professionals. I mean, those are also there, but just general practitioners. So that's why the New Zealand government is trying to build relations with a lot of, countries for exchange in these. And there are there's a huge skill shortage, in fact, that a lot of clinics and after our clinics like White Cross, you would find them close because the talent is just not there.
All right.
So that's there. And then the second, which is, I guess, always steady, is nursing. We don't have good nurses here, and New Zealand needs them. And they're working, but there's still a skill shortage there. After healthcare, skill shortage that we have had and we've always had is in the tech industry. Not particularly IT, hardware or infrastructure as such, but there's a lot of skill shortage in software development. There's a high shortage for cloud, cybersecurity, machine learning, AI development is big. Now, it is predicted that by the time it's 2030, we are going to be in a $200 billion digital marketing world. And there's a huge skill shortage for that in New Zealand at the moment, especially in the government sector. We have people who've been there for years, even the younger people, but they're not very, tech savvy. And that requirement is there. Simple apps like Articulate, Storyboard, Miro. Those skills are needed for project development.
You mean like mainly storytellers?
Storytellers, I guess even in like recruitment and HR, a lot of analysts are needed, and we don't have that skill at the moment. There's a huge gap there, and a lot of efforts are being put in to make sure that they're upskilling people. But this also enables, people from overseas who've actually got that experience to come in here and, put those on their CV, because you just never know. There might be a recruiter who's just so desperate to find the right person, they'll actually go ahead and do a job check, just because they don't have that skill here.
So when you say that, it's mainly comes between, my understanding is people who know how to tell a story in an effective way.
Yes.
They can make easily a six-figure salary.
Yes.
Is that your? Oh, that's really amazing to see. Storytellers, IT engineers, and the medical industry people. How about construction people?
I think what's happened is since 2023, there has been a low demand in construction.
Okay.
That's why I guess the gap is not sort of so visible. But foreseeing because New Zealand is an aging population, and New Zealand is a small country. So keeping that in mind, it is very easy to pick yourself up. So we do get we are losing a lot of very talented project managers in the construction industry.
Okay.
Because they, they're moving on, they are retiring, they're taking a step back. So it is predicted that there will be a gap for that soon. Right at the moment, it's not there.
All right.
Because we've got people in the market, and there's not a lot of, large projects that are happening. But very shortly, I think, by the time we hit 2025, there will be a lot more requirements coming up because New Zealand has got a lot of big projects in the pipeline.
You are expecting that next 5 years, there is a huge jump in job opportunities because of there are no young generations.
Definitely. I definitely think not even 5 years. 5 years is really long. I think just currently right now, it is... Right now, a lot of companies have ceased recruitment, but I think this is not going to last for too long. I feel like by the end of this year, things will pick up. So, everything that's on pause. So the tech industry, they had the big fall last year, in terms of in other countries like America, there were a lot of people who were laid off. And New Zealand experienced that towards the end of last year, and they're still experiencing that at the moment. But having said that, there is going to be huge projects that are going to be started up again. And we would need people in those areas, especially cybersecurity.
Okay.
That is a huge gap here. We've got, companies like Darktrace that are always recruiting people.
Okay.
And they need talented people there, and that skill is not here. But what New Zealand, what a lot of PTEs are doing at the moment, they're taking this opportunity and they've developed micro-credential courses. So these
I've seen
micro
that, yeah.
courses, so these micro courses are really helpful. So we had a lot of layoffs in the tech companies last year. Even companies like Xero, who we felt like untouchable, they had layoffs there. So what these people have done is they've started upskilling themselves.
Yep.
And so upskilling yourself is different to studying a whole degree again. Upskilling yourself with these micro courses is just sort of, gaining new skills. So a lot of these micro credential courses are quite handy these days, especially for people who are upskilling themselves. So AWS have a lot of these programs that they offer. And I think that definitely adds value to people's CV, especially to recruiters, because that's a gap that we're looking for in our, when we do our planning with our hiring managers, we ask them what are the gaps, and they tell us, yep, these are the gaps we're looking for, and these are the programs we're looking for. So if somebody who's done these micro-credential courses, it really does help them, for us to pick these people out, and it helps these candidates to secure, the role that they're looking for.
As you mentioned, these micro-credentials really give priority to evaluating the candidates. How much time do you really spend on a candidate resume?
If I'm very honest, I can pretty much read the first half of a candidate's page to know if they're going to be good for the company or not. So I can easily just have one glance at the candidate for 30 seconds and know if there's good values. Because what I look for is, and especially because I've been doing a lot of tech recruitment and specialized recruitment for the past, 3-4 years, I can easily look at their expertise and see what they've done, what their tech stack, not expertise. I can easily look at the tech stack that they have and see if, that's something that's required. What companies are looking for, they're looking for people who are for sure, they know that they've got the right skills for the role. So when you're looking for a six-figure salary role, when you're trying to cross that benchmark, by this time, it's not that you apply for any role. By this time, you know what your expertise are. You know what the job ad has asked for, and you know what the company is looking for. When you're applying for a job, you've got, from the desired skills, make sure that you've got 80% of those skills, and the compulsory ones, make sure it's 100%. Because if you don't have those, because, you can, when you're starting off your career, the first few years, you can easily learn things. Companies, when they hire somebody at a six-figure salary, they want to make sure that that candidate who's become an employee can hit the ground running. If there is a role that you've seen, you think, I definitely want to get into this role, that's where you get into these micro-credential courses and you do them. At times, it is okay if you don't have working knowledge on certain, programs or certain languages, or even, certain projects. It is okay that you've just got short courses that you've done to achieve that, because that would just mean that we are recruiting somebody who have upskilled themselves and they can use those skills that they've learned in their courses to the role that they're entering.
What advice you can give for the people who are losing jobs at the moment?
First of all, don't take it personally, because this happens to everyone and anyone. There have been some very, very experienced people who get made redundant. It's just how it is. So what you do in these situations is you take it as an opportunity. You take it as an opportunity to give yourself time to upskill yourself. So this is where that is why a lot of PTEs are running these micro-credential courses. So you can do a lot of courses on AWS, cybersecurity, project management, and AI.
Yeah.
I want to go back to project management because that's applicable across
All roles, small roles.
many roles, small roles as well, and many different industries.
I think people's management skill is one of the most valuable skill in the industry. And I think anyone who want to be successful, they need to have that people management skills.
Yes.
Understand the psychology of handling people. It's easy to get a six-figure salary.
So a lot of times we have delivery leads and project managers and product managers. Now, they've got the word lead and managers to it. Those are still individual contributors, but they are highly paid. They are highly paid because obviously the product knowledge that they have built, but also because they know how to project manage. So they've got and they most probably have done these courses in project management that does add value, because in the end, I mentioned before as well that in New Zealand, there's a high shortage on digitally savvy people. They can conceptualize ideas very well when they're verbally speaking, but what you need to do is you need to be able to display it. So that conceptualization is very important. Take this as an opportunity to upskill yourself. And if you've been in a company for more than 3 years, I think it's the best thing that will happen to you if you're being made redundant.
I would say that, and the best thing is to get out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
So the reward for that, it's you won't see it now. Within 6 months, it's your entire life is gonna change on that.
Completely. It is hard just in the moment, but later on, it just adds so much more value.
You're saying the traditional way of employer loyalty is no longer valid?
No longer,
Okay, that's very interesting.
It's a complete shift. It's a complete shift of mindset at the moment. Not at the moment, it's just changed now.
People who are agile gets to more opportunity over there.
Yes, you have to, So change management is very big. There's a lot of ambiguities. I mean, COVID has definitely brought in a lot of ambiguities on how we do things. It's brought in ambiguities, but in a positive manner as well. People are more enterprising now. Companies are more enterprising. They take risks. So they need somebody who's very agile, who can adjust to any change that is thrown at them.
So, as you mentioned, you are not going to spend 30 seconds on a resume to validate it, right? I just want to know before that, like what happens before that when a resume is gone through, when a student is or candidate is applied on a job application. It will initially go through the ATS, right? The board that decides whether this application is valid or not. For the role. How someone can really improve their resume to make sure that's been passed the ATS?
So when you put your application through a job board, I mean like Seek or Trade Me or Indeed or anything, it is automatically sent to an ATS system. Now, for us to be able to pick that up, first things first, what I've noticed these days is people like to make really pretty CVs. They add lots of colors and a lot of boxes, and they would chuck in a photo as well. I think what happens is a lot of times they don't convert it to a PDF, and the margins and things, they move around and it is not clear. So we lose those applications. And the ATS doesn't, adapt to the columns that they have. So first things first, to make your CV very compatible to any ATS, keep it simple.
Yep.
You don't need to put lots of margins in, a lot of things. Keep it as simple as you can get, and make sure it's PDF. When you put an application through a job board, it will get to an ATS, and ATS will never automatically reject. What the ATS does is, a lot of times they will have keywords. So what they will do is they will recommend applications to us. So automatically, if those keywords are there, we will look at those keywords. We will go into it. But in the end, again, it's machine, right? So a lot of times they don't pick up the right candidates. So we will go back. But what gets rejected is when we open up an application and it is all scrambled.
Okay.
That is when we recruiters, a human rejects it.
Oh, okay. So there is someone who is literally looking into the application according to the board recommendation.
Yeah.
And then they reject it.
Then they reject it.
Oh, that makes sense. How is the market looking like for remote jobs?
There has been a huge shift since the last quarter of 2023, where more and more companies are wanting their people to come back to work.
Why is that?
I think what they feel is that there's a lot of pressure from the government, because people working from home does not add value to, things
They're not
like
spending
hospitality.
money.
They're not spending money. Yeah, so the transport transportation is not getting, any money out of it. The hospitality is not getting any money out of it. So that's one of the reasons. There's a lot of pressure there. But another reason is companies want people not to be working for themselves. They want them to work for the organization, So what happens is when you, because of post-COVID, a lot of companies allowed people to continue working from home. So, these people have sort of, build their routine around, their work routine around their lives. Company no longer want that. What they want is how it used to be. There's still a huge sort of, line between what is work-life balance, but they sort of slowly want the culture back where, 9 to 5, you focus in the work and then you go have your balance.
Do you want to share a story of a time that you hired someone because, not because of the knowledge he had or he or she had, because of how expressive, because of what they are, what I meant by that is like, even though that candidate, you clearly know the candidate didn't have the skills, technical skills required to run the job, but you feel or you felt that candidate is the right fit for the job.
Yeah.
So can you give an example and why did you hire them?
So one of the really interesting, recruitments that I did was in Auckland Council. So we were recruiting for a business excellence manager for the leisure centres, for the leisure department. So this person was pretty much going to head all the leisure centres, do their scheduling, do a lot of their procurement, and do a lot of forecasting for them. Okay, so we needed somebody who had sort of technical knowledge in supply chain, but they were also going to manage the leisure centres, and the leisure centres honestly consist of close to 300 people.
Okay.
So they were around 11 leisure centres, so 11 direct reports, which is the leisure centre managers, and then indirect reports. So we needed somebody who was very robust, somebody, who could actually build relations with these people, but also had the technical knowledge and skills to actually make sure the leisure centres run.
Yeah, understood.
Okay. So went through a lot of candidates, got a lot of people, got really good experience. I came across a guy. So he had an interesting profile. He was he was in the police, but he was retiring.
Okay.
And he was just in the police for the last 6 years. Before that, he was in the UK in the aviation industry and supply chain.
Okay.
So obviously the aviation industry, I know, is much bigger than the leisure centre. So they would have, different, moving parts. What I liked here was the leadership I felt like he would have gained while working as a policeman.
Yep, understood.
Because see, recruiters don't just see, I've spoken about, the requirements of the role, the expertise of the role, but there's a culture as well. So this is a very strong leadership role, and the leisure center managers and staff members, they can be pretty full on, pretty hands full. So somebody to manage them, they have to have a lot of charisma and strong leadership skills to actually, motivate them. Because, what I had noticed was they would give a lot of, they would talk back a lot to their managers, and they would be, I guess they would have a lot of opinions of their own. So that strong leadership was lacking. So I put this person forward. Now, it didn't exactly match the requirements, in terms of just being able to, manage a large team. Because this person was an individual contributor. The only leadership skill they had was because he was a policeman. But what I had told the hiring manager, let's interview this guy and see how he comes off. When we interviewed him, he pretty much ticked all the boxes. He had the, the technical knowledge from his aviation days when he was in supply chain. But he had that personality, the oomph, the charisma that was needed.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was a really good recruitment call.
Okay.
That, I had made. So that happens a lot.
Can you give us a step-by-step process on an interview?
In a recruitment process, step 1 is a hiring manager will come to a recruiter and say, I've got a requirement for a role. They'll have a discussion. And then based on that, the recruiter will develop a job ad. In the job ad, they will list out all the requirements for the role. Now, a candidate who's applying for a role at this level should understand their skills and expertise. And they should understand that, yes, this is what's required in this role, and these are the skills I have. And that is when they should apply for it. So once the candidate has applied for the role and the recruiter has gone through a CV and they think that, yep, they've got all the skills on paper, let's have a chat to them. The recruiter will give them a call for a phone screen. In the phone screen, basically it's around 15 to 20 minutes. What they're looking for is the validation of all the skills that they have listed in their CV, they can actually carry that out. And the recruiters will ask for specific examples of working knowledge.
Yeah, make sure we're ready with the stories.
Yeah. So here,
relevant
it's important,
stories.
Relevant stories.
Yeah, make
here
sure you're
you
ready
have,
with them.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to make sure that here you are ready with relevant stories to make sure that the answers that you're giving to the recruiter are feasible. Okay?
Right. Yeah.
That's needed. The recruiter, when they're talking to you, they're also judging the way you sound, your tone, your confidence,
Understood.
Because at this level, you need somebody who can hit the ground running.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of movement around for training. There is training, but there won't be.
Yeah.
So they're looking at your confidence and your skills.
Yeah.
So once a recruiter feels, yep, they've got the right skills and they're pretty confident, they will put you forward to the hiring manager.
Yeah.
Okay, for an interview. Now, in the interview, it's going to be more extensive. So for this, the candidates need to make sure the examples, the recruiter would have spoken for 15 minutes. This will be up to 1 hour. You need to really portray a good story.
Yep.
So you need to, if they will ask you a question, you need to make sure there's examples of what went well, examples of what, if it didn't go well, how did you remedy that?
All right. Okay.
This is what the hiring manager is looking for.
Okay. One thing. Okay. When should I be negotiating my salary? During the interview, or if I'm having that conversation with the manager?
Okay.
How should I be approaching for the salary?
All right.
Or specifically negotiate?
That's a good question. So the recruiter is there to negotiate. 90% of the time, hiring managers are not allowed to talk salary with the candidate.
Okay.
The recruiters, because they recruiters like to keep things centralized. So when the initial phone screen is happening, the recruiter will tell you that this is the salary we're offering.
What if they don't tell you? Yeah.
You can ask them. You can ask the recruiter what is the salary.
Okay. Give me a formal way of asking it.
So say, for instance, you've had a really good chat with the recruiter. And the recruiter is like, okay, awesome. I will set up a time and I'll call you.
Okay.
Then you can say, oh, actually, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
And the recruiter will be like, what is it? What is the salary for this role?
Uh-huh.
The recruiter then will be like, okay, Anuvindh, the salary for this role is 122, 140K.
Let's do a role play here. So, okay, let's play role play.
Okay.
So, you're asking me about that salary. Just go for it. From
just before you go, I just want to know, what is the salary scope for this role?
Oh, what's your expectation?
Well, I in Seek, this is sitting on 120K and above, because that was my search that I narrowed down. So I'm looking for something around 140K.
Okay. So I feel like that's kind of above our budget. Let me talk to our manager and get back to you. What do you feel like from that? Does it mean that the HR is not happy about your negotiation, or is it like out of the budget?
It's out of the budget.
So when they say
so if you are wanting 140K and nothing less, you have to be transparent with HR as well.
All right.
Actually, you can be very clear saying, look, currently I'm sitting on 135K. Okay. And I'm leaving this job only so that I can, get a bit more remuneration as well as the experience. And I don't want to change my job for anything less than 140K.
Okay. So make sure you are transparent with it.
Okay. if you are very transparent like that and you strongly say, look, I don't want to change my job for anything less than 140K, and the recruiter goes, oh, okay, I'll have a chat, but I still think I should move you forward, that means there is scope for negotiation.
Okay.
A recruiter will not put you forward if you are so strong about what salary you want. They will not put you forward if it's not in the budget.
Okay, what if they ask you about what's your current salary? Before, like, I've seen that practice, like recruiters just wanted to know what you're getting paid for now. Do you want to share it to the recruiter, or you should not be? It's not required to share it with them, because they tend to judge their expectation on top of it.
Actually, this is a very traditional question. Nowadays, recruiters do not ask you what your current salary is.
If they
may ask you in the sort of final round. I think you need to take in these situations. You need to take charge.
Okay.
And how you take charge is by being very honest right in the beginning when you're phone screening.
Let's say a candidate who is having 100K, right? Right now the job is 100K.
Yeah.
But he or she have a skill set currently in the market like 140 or 150K.
Yeah.
Right. So there is a almost 50% jump happening.
Yeah.
Does this influence in any way in the hiring manager or the HR when they say, okay, right now I'm in 100K, I'm expecting to get 150. So how you handle that actually? Because definitely that's a red flag.
Yeah. So, okay, my advice here is if you've applied for 140K, okay, and if you're saying, oh, yeah, I'm at 100K, there's a high chance that they will negotiate it to be less.
Yeah, okay, understood.
So you have to put your best foot forward. So, if it is highly unlikely a recruiter will, if you're on a 100K salary and you applied for 140K, first of all, it's highly unlikely a recruiter is going to go, or they will ask you, what is your salary expectation? You can say, look, based on my skills, 140. If a recruiter is asking you, oh, what is your current salary? I think that's a red flag for the company, because
they should not be asking.
They should not be asking you that.
Understood.
Really.
Oh, that makes sense.
It's a red flag already.
Yeah.
But if the recruiter does ask, say, look, this is my skill set. This is my expectation.
What are the red flags you should be looking for when a call is happening from recruiter to the hiring manager?
One question that you should always ask the hiring manager is, why has this role come about? And how long was the previous person in this role before me? If the hiring manager goes, oh yeah, they were here for like 6 months or 3 months, anything under a year, I see that as a red flag.
Okay.
Because, okay, why did that person leave in less than a year's time? Maybe they were not the right fit. If they were not the right fit, why was a person who didn't have the right fit recruited for this role? I think that's the first major red flag.
Okay. Interesting.
There are other red flags that you can pick up. If the recruiter and the hiring manager keep telling you, oh, look, this is a fantastic company, we're like a family here. That is the biggest red flag ever. Too much
boosting is...
No, it's not even boosting. When a company says, we're like a family, that means literally they expect you to give everything to your family. It's like, hi, you've come to your new family.
All right, understood. Understood.
So that's another red flag.
Okay. Right.
Couple of other red flags here are if the sometimes the phone screens are done directly by hiring managers in these senior roles or recruiters even. If they are calling you after work hours saying, oh, hey, we want to talk to you now, I see that as a red flag as well, because I see a company not being very organized.
Understood.
And because a lot of times what happens is a lot of these managers, they have either been there for so long or either they literally have given their lives to the company. They don't see the value of time.
Understood.
And I know these days, everybody wants that work-life balance.
That's very clear. Now, what are the red flags for the candidates?
As a recruiter, my biggest red flag is if I see a candidate apply for 5 different roles that I'm looking after in my company, these are not like your junior roles. These are senior roles. I feel like the candidate doesn't value their skills, or they actually don't know what they're doing in terms of why they're applying. So again, when you're applying for roles that are at a higher level, you apply for the right role. Okay, so that's one red flag. So a lot of times I see candidates who don't have the right experience even, and they apply for those roles, and I reject them. And then the next time, and I'll put a note saying, oh, rejecting candidate because it doesn't have the right experience.
Okay.
The next recruiter, when they apply for a role next time, and it is for the right fit for the team, but the recruiter will see, the next recruiter will see the note from me saying, oh yeah, the candidate applied for the role, do not have the right skills. That's a red flag as well for the candidate.
Communication skills, obviously there's going to be at eligible level on that area, like a 6-figure salary. But I want to know how the tone of a candidate that gives you a vibe that makes you, okay, this is the right one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just very recently, I phone screened a candidate. She had all the right skills. She's very confident the way she spoke. Now, I was actually telling her the process. So a green flag, of a company is where the recruiter will be transparent on what the recruitment process is going to be. So I was talking through the process,
Yep.
So she interrupted me.
Oh, okay.
And she interrupted me saying, look, I need to give 4 weeks notice. I was like, okay, no, that's fine. We've still got a few candidates we're going to put forward. No, but I have to let you know that I've got 4 weeks notice. So, if you're considering for this role, please make sure that, you have that in mind. I do not put that person forward because I felt like...
Is it because of demanding?
I felt like they felt very privileged and entitled.
What are the 5 main things that you look into a person's CV that make you say, okay, this is the one?
I like to read the highlight. If somebody has got, so you've got your the role that you've done, your roles and responsibilities. I really like it when somebody summarizes the highlights of that role and they highlight the achievements and it's short.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one thing that I really like. Second thing that I really like is I believe in less is more. I like very short, concise CVs.
Okay. Makes sense.
1 to 2 pager max. I feel like if they're able to, fit everything there, they can fit things in a lean way. So that's another thing that I look for. Number 3, what I like is that sometimes, people get, like for instance, when I gave you the example of the Auckland Council guy who was a police officer, but he was also in supply chain once upon a time. What he'd done was he'd put a little para right in the beginning of the CV that, and it said most relevant to this role, most relevant experience. And he mentioned that.
Oh, okay.
I felt like, yes, this person is organized and they're pointing it out, that, yep, this is a relevant role.
All right.
Okay. Now, we spoke about, the loyalty, that culture is gone. But that doesn't mean that, we're going to pick up someone who's been changing jobs every 6 months.
Okay.
If a person has been switching jobs, if they give us a reason to why, valid reason, so it can be contracting, if they write things like that, or if they've had huge gaps, on their CV, and if they've said that, okay, 2018 to 2020, stay-at-home mom, or traveling, or looking after, a family member's health,
valid reasons.
Valid reasons. I like that.
Okay.
See, your CVs should reflect what, we want to hear.
All right.
Okay?
Makes
So
sense.
that's the 4th thing. And 5th thing is, to be honest, I don't like it when people put their photos.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's different if it's for a marketing role and a design role.
Okay, but not on technical project management roles.
Project management role, I don't think that's... In New Zealand, Australia specifically, I don't think it's required.
Okay, that's a good thing to know.
Yeah. You don't need to add your photo there because we're going to look you in LinkedIn anyways.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
Sometimes you will notice that in the job ad, it will say only successful candidates will be contacted.
Yeah.
Okay. In that case, you know that the recruiter will not get back to you.
Yeah.
But if that's not the case, it is okay to email. It is also okay to reach out to the recruiter on LinkedIn, and be like, look, I've applied for this role. I've not been successful, but I'm following this company for a long time. Can you give me feedback, or can I please connect with you?
Yep.
So you can just directly contact them.
It's good to know. All right. I think we've taken too much time of yours.
No, it's all
But
right.
thank you for your time.
I've enjoyed this.
So we had really a good insight of the market at the moment.
Yeah.
People who are looking for a job, people who want to get into that six-figure bandwidth.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be really helpful. Always look positive, even if you are facing some rejections, if you are facing, obviously, recession is happening. There are a lot of job cuts happening. Take this as an opportunity for everyone, I believe. Any recommendation you want to give to our audience that...
Once you have secured an interview, one step to success can be the research that you do. Okay? So when you get that invite, you've got the name of the hiring manager there. It is very beneficial that you go onto LinkedIn, and it is okay if it comes to their knowledge that you've seen their profile, because it'll just make them feel like, okay, you are very much interested in this role and you're exploring. It is okay to see what kind of posts they've been sharing.
Okay.
What kind of posts the company has been sharing, and making a connection to yourself and to them, and using that as an example. Oh, I noticed that you share a so-and-so post about agile workways or something like that.
Okay, make it relevant.
Make it very relevant and already have a connection before going in. I think that really helps in terms of connecting to the hiring manager.
Thank you very much, Sidra. Sidra is one of the best person I have known. She made thousands of people's dream come true. Thank you for your time.
No worries.
I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for having me. It's been lots of fun.
Yes.
Talking.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm always happy to give tips.
Thank you for your precious time. I appreciate you came here and you did it. Thanks for it. That's all for today's episode of nlsa Podcast. But don't worry, this conversation doesn't end here. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so that you never miss an episode. Remember, your dream job is within your reach, and we are here to help you in every step of that way. Until next time, stay motivated, stay inspired, keep chasing those career goals. This is nlsa Podcast signing off. See you in next episode.